Hello, Stitchers. Welcome to Stitch Please, the official podcast of Black Women Stitch, the sewing group where Black Lives Matter. I'm your host, Lisa Woolfork. I'm a fourth-generation sewing enthusiast with more than 20 years of sewing experience. I am looking forward to today's conversation, so sit back, relax, and get ready to get your stitch together. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Stitch Please podcast. I am delighted and so excited to be talking today with Jasmine Chandler from So Much Jazz. I have followed her for so long, and she and I met at DC Frock Tales back in, was that 2020?
20, right before the pandemic started, actually.
Yes, it was 2020. We met in 2020, and she remembered, and I did not, that we both got our tattoos. We got tattoos at DC Frock Tales. This is why DC Frock Tales is the best Frock Tales, and DC Frock Tales is the blackest Frock Tales, and DC Frock Tales is the only Frock Tales we recognize. And we both got, which design did you get?
Actually on my finger, I got a sewing needle and thread. It kind of loops through my hand.
Oh, I got on my forearm, I got a sewing needle and stitches shaped like a heart. I love that. It was such a great event. It was so much fun.
It was
so much fun.
It was fun.
So welcome to the program, Jasmine. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This is so much fun. I'm so excited to be speaking with you because I look at your work and I see this wonderful trajectory, this wonderful path that you have been on. You're a designer and you teach university level teaching about fashion and design, and you do custom sewing, and now you're going to be shifting into pattern design and pattern sales. I would love to talk a little bit about, just to begin, what is the start of your sewing story? How did you get started? How did you get going on this as a creative practice?
Okay, so it's been a journey, but I will say, and I remember exactly, I was in the 5th grade. I always used to sketch, and so I always used to sketch out ideas. When I go back to school shop, I would draw out my outfits. I always used to love to draw. And I remember sitting at my table in the 5th grade. I don't know how I remember this, but I remember sitting at my table in the 5th grade, and I said, "Oh, I want to be a fashion designer." I had no idea what that was. I don't know where it came to in my head, but I said I want to be a fashion designer. I didn't know how to sew. I didn't know how to draw. And ever since then, I have been pursuing that dream. Funny enough, I started out as a pharmacy major in college because that was a more safe career. The term was 6 years, 6 figures. So I said, okay, I'll do the pharmacy thing. I'll make my money, and then I'll open my fashion boutique. So that was always the goal, to go back into fashion. My freshman year, I was miserable. I was truly miserable. I had no idea what was going on. I remember sitting in class and just the words, terminology, just going over my head. I had no idea. I was filling out all my classes. I was just miserable. I would come back into my dorm and just cry. It was just terrible. And I had a discussion with my mom that summer and said, I can't do this anymore. I have to do something different. I said, I really want to pursue fashion design. She said, well, I'll give you an ultimatum. Either you stay where you're at and you can change your major, or you can go to the other school and you can do that. I had initially had an idea of the school I wanted to go to, but she said, no, I'm not paying for that. You can go to this other school that I know your friend goes to, and you can, do it from there. So I said, that's fine. I'll take it. So I changed my major and transfer schools. And now I have my BS in Textiles and Apparel Studies from Delaware State University. And then I went on and got my MS in Fashion Design from Drexel University.
Oh, that's fantastic. To go from pharmacy to fashion.
Yes.
That is quite the transformation. Yes. But
I knew my passion was. That's the thing. I just knew it wasn't for me. Even before then, I went to an HBCU for my undergrad career, and they normally have, during the homecoming week, they have fashion shows. I remember just sitting in the audience and just watching the models come down. I want to say, I need to be doing this. That's what motivated me to change and pursue fashion. I need to be in that area and work in fashion.
It's just so interesting to hear your story of heartbreak sitting in a chemistry class or some kind of class like that, and just feeling like, I am so out of place. I'm out of my depth. Maybe these other kids understand what's going on, or maybe they're just exactly as confused as me. I don't know, but I'm not feeling, this is just not working for me. But then during homecoming, you go to a fashion show, and then that's when your spark gets lit up, and you're like, wait a minute, this is what feeds me. This is what's getting me excited. And to be able to discover that so early, I think it is pretty unusual. So you went to Delaware State.
Yeah, that's where I
Continue.
actually I didn't know that's the thing. I didn't know how to sew or do anything until I got into undergrad. When I first started my fashion program at Del State, that's when I first started learning to sew. It was still very basic. That's why I went on to go to grad school to hone my skills a little bit more. That's why I feel like I really learned and really got better into what I'm doing now.
I'm excited that you learned to sew in undergraduate.
Yes, my
Like,
sophomore year.
not because you and a friend sat around a table in the dorm room and she taught you how to sew something. You had classes that you were
Mhm.
actually graded on.
Mhm.
I know this might sound like not a big deal to you, but it's a huge deal to me because my undergraduate classes, which I had a good undergraduate experience,
Mhm.
but the closest thing that we did, I was a communications and English major. The closest thing that we did in terms of practical arts was graphic design, where we
Mhm.
had to design a font, which I loved doing because
Uh-huh.
I love typography. I think that each individual letter of a font is a piece of art.
Mhm.
I love that kind of detail stuff. But the idea of being able to walk into a class full of sewing machines and you got to go there and cut out your pattern and do the
Mhm.
interfacing and learn to understitch and all of
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
It sounds incredibly fun. Let me just be
Yeah.
honest. It sounds super fun. So you had a good time.
Yes, and that's the thing too. As I mentioned before, I was failing my freshman year of college, but I graduated top of my department, top of my class, and also graduated with honors as magna cum laude. So that shows you how when you need a purpose, you will excel and within that area. So,
Yes,
mhm,
yes. This is fantastic. Magna cum laude. Yes. When you look back at your undergraduate experience,
mhm.
can you identify like two or three things that you walked away with that gave you the courage to move forward through this career path?
I know for well the program that I was in, and it's funny enough, I will get to it later if need be, but I actually went back to that school, my undergrad, and taught there. That's how I started my education career. It felt like it wasn't. I wanted to be a designer, and it was like a generalized like fashion. I did a little bit of everything, so it wasn't focused on design too much. I had very basic sewing skills. It wasn't that great. So I knew that one thing I had to do was really push myself to get to where I wanted to be. I also always said that when I'm able to get there, I want to help the next person along to help them get to their journey. That's one of the biggest things that I've like pretty much took from that experience.
Yes, through your education, you
Mhm.
learn the importance of connecting with people
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
building community and inspiring
Mm.
because you were inspired and now you get to turn around and similarly
Right.
inspire someone else.
As
After undergraduate and then after
mhm.
graduate school, did you start right away into your custom sewing business or did
So
you spend doing something else?
so that's the thing. So after I graduated from grad school, that was 2013. I was applying. No, they teach you all of the technical skills, but I was trying to get into industry. I would had interviews in New York. I was going to New York like every other week, doing an interview, trying to get a job as assistant designer somewhere. However, I wasn't getting the callbacks. It wouldn't follow through. It was just weird. So I just gave up in a sense. And then I was back at home. I changed my parents' basement to my little sewing studio. That's when I
Mm-hmm.
kind of started doing like prom dresses and prom gowns. I started building my clientele that way because I wasn't really. I had to make some type of income for myself. So that's basically how my business started. I was doing a little bit towards the end of the year to the last couple of months of my grad school career. But once I couldn't get a job in industry, I actually started building my brand, building my business.
And I really love that because what it
Mhm.
shows is that you had your passion has been driving you from the
Mhm.
beginning, from
Mhm.
a fifth grader.
Yes.
The idea that you can vividly remember being a fifth
Yes.
grader sitting in class,
Mhm.
drawing out pictures. I, for example, will be excited about back to school shopping to get
Yes.
school supplies and stuff. You get excited about back to school shopping
Yes.
so you can draw out your
At the
outfits
outfits.
and then you can find pieces that would then match your drawing.
Mhm.
Incredible. It just shows that you have the skills and that it doesn't necessarily require somebody else to
Mhm.
acknowledge you. And I think that's
Mhm.
an important
Mhm.
lesson we can all learn that
Mhm.
you really have to know yourself and know your worth because you can get easily discouraged. I believe that the fashion
Yes.
industry is a very competitive industry. It
Mhm.
doesn't seem particularly equitable.
Mm.
It doesn't
Yes.
seem that way at all. You can fortify yourself
Yes.
with
That's
the
funny you mentioned that. The way the program is at Drexel, it's both grad and undergrad. You pretty much do the same classes. It's just one's for master's degree, one's for a bachelor's degree. And I really felt like in my class, like I felt very overlooked. by most of my professors. And when I graduated in class, I was the only brown, only black girl. Was one other girl who was Indian descent. I was only black. I felt very overlooked in that program, which pushed me to myself that I'm worth it. Like I can do this. But yeah, I remember just feeling like very overlooked in that program throughout my entire time there during the whole program.
And you said you were at an HBCU before you
Yes.
transferred to study fashion. Where were you?
My freshman year, I was at Hampton doing pharmacy. Then I transferred to another HBCU, which was Dell State, and did fashion.
Okay. So you stayed at HBCU
Mm-hmm.
for both graduate school,
Yes.
for
Mm-hmm.
both
Yeah.
undergraduate education. So it's
Yeah.
not like you left the comfort of
Right. Mm-hmm.
HBCU to go to an aggressively white
So I got both.
university,
Yeah, I
and
got
it's
both
just, oh,
experiences.
this is going to be hard. But no, you had a really firm foundation in
Mm-hmm.
undergraduate. Did you find that helped you when you
I
got to
I
Drexel? Did you feel like, this is some bullshit? I don't know if I like this. I mentioned it because I went to a women's college for
mm-hmm.
undergraduate,
Okay.
and then when I went to graduate school, Jasmine,
Uh-huh.
I was in classes with men for the first time, and
Oh, okay.
I tell you what, they would not shut up. They did not know
Mm-hmm.
shit, but they kept talking
Mm-hmm.
and talking, and I would get angry. I'd be like, why am I busting my butt? I'm reading
Right.
300 pages a night. I am killing myself to show
Yeah.
that I can do this work and that I'm reading and studying. And they just roll up and say things like, I didn't do the reading, but I
Mm-hmm.
believe blah, blah, blah. And I was like, how
Mm-hmm.
are you going to admit to
Mm-hmm.
everybody that you just talking out of your butt crack? What? And so,
Yeah.
did you have experiences like that? Because I can imagine, just like you, just from being from an HBCU and then being
Yeah.
like a lonely, only it's you and a Southeast Asian sister are the only two
Yeah.
folks in there.
Yeah, initially in my program, I first started out, it was me and three other black girls, and I still talk to them to this day. One of the girls I'm very close with, my friend Abia, we talk every day. She's a designer as well, but we once throughout the time we got different paths, but honestly, it wasn't that bad for me because being in the graduate program, I didn't have that do with the undergraduate experience. I kind of came on campus, did my work, and went back home. Basically,
Mm.
I had my friendship that I had formed. Of course, I had friendship with everyone else too, but of course, I had my sister that I very like linked with as well. So it wasn't that bad for me. I was there to learn, so I wasn't like looking for too much outside of that either.
You were like, I'm just
Hmm.
going to get in and get
Right.
out, and it's true
Hmm.
that graduate school or professional schools, especially,
Hmm.
aren't so much about creating communities or like building
Right.
lasting friendships in the same way that undergraduate tends to be seen as. You finished, you've got your degrees, you're trying to fit in and to
Hmm.
get a place at one of the fashion places in New York, which is a big
Hmm.
fashion hub in the US.
Hmm.
And it's just been really, it's been hard. It's hard.
Right.
And so you're like, I'm going to invest in myself.
Hmm.
So, what is the first step that you did when you decided to build a small studio in your parents' house and to start doing prom gowns? Like, what got you to that point? Was there a story you had to tell yourself to help empower you to feel ready to do that? Or tell me a bit about that process.
Honestly, I feel like developed on its own. I never really promoted. I was like making my business that much. I got a lot of referrals from like friends who know I design and like made clothing, and I went that way. And then from there I got more referrals and more referrals. But that's the thing too. I did do a lot of research on my own because I had no way to figure out, there's no particular source to go to figure these things out. So I did a lot of my own research. I'll go to New York, go to trade shows, just connect with vendors, and just like do a lot of like back end research, buy books, search the internet, and just figure things out step by step until I can get to where I needed to get. That was
So,
mostly the big thing.
so you
Mm-hmm.
just spent a lot of time and energy supplementing the
Mm-hmm.
credentials you already had. That's the
Yeah.
thing that I hear you're saying is that you had like organic growth,
Mm-hmm.
because you had referrals and word of mouth and people saying, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
Jazz does a really beautiful
Mm-hmm.
gowns and look
Mm-hmm.
what she made," and "Oh, I want one of those too. Maybe my daughter might want that
Right.
or this for a special occasion." But you also had core competency in the industry already because you
Mm-hmm.
studied it as an
Right.
undergraduate. Tell me,
Right.
what made you think that you still needed to know more? Is it because you are just intellectually curious and you are
Yes.
really passionate about the field and you just want to know more, or
Yes.
or did you feel like you were okay, you said so,
Yeah. And
elaborate on that. I want to hear more
honest,
about that. You love learning.
I love learning. I love this craft. I've been passionate about it for so. I love this craft. If I could take a class now and advance myself, I would. But there's something really like, I'm never saying I'm better than, but there's some things that I just want to advance, certain area I want to advance, but there's something really around me like that. But I'm trying to, everything I can find across online, I can do, or go somewhere, I would do it because I just love learning. I want to build my technique. Everyone's still learning. I'm still building my technique. I'm still building my skills. So if I can find a class now to this day, I would take it. I just love, learning about, the industry, learning about my craft, and just building and honing my skills.
I love that. It makes a difference in what you're able to create.
Mm-hmm.
Because and also it makes a difference in how you teach, because I think in order to teach you have to, at least speaking for myself, you have to also be in a constant place of learning.
Yes,
If everything
exactly.
And there's nowhere left to know and nobody can tell you nothing.
Exactly.
That's stagnation to me, because expertise always has to be refreshed. Yes. You know what I mean?
And industry changes, like fashion changes, so it's good to stay abreast of things too.
Yes. So I want to talk about your own teaching, but we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk about her teaching and how she teaches fashion design and garment construction. And then we can shift to talking about her new pattern collection. Hooray! Stay tuned, y'all. We'll be right back after the break. Black Women Stitch and the Stitch Please podcast are happy to announce that we have another way to connect with our community. In addition to the IG Lives that we do every Thursday at 3 p.m., we also now have a club on Clubhouse. That's right, friends. They done messed up and given me the chance to have a club. Follow Black Women Stitch on Instagram and now on Clubhouse Thursdays at 3 p.m. on Instagram and 3:45 p.m. on Clubhouse Eastern Standard Time. And we'll help you get your stitch together. We are back, everyone, and I am happy to be speaking with Jasmine Chandler, so much jazz, on Instagram, who is a designer and a teacher. And she's going to talk to us about both of these things. She was talking before about what it means to be a lifelong learner. And as someone who studied design and sewing and garment construction at both the undergraduate and the graduate level, I find her so impressive. She has the credentials, she's done the work, she's done the training, and she helps to train other people. I wanted to hear a bit about the classes that you teach, Jazz. Tell me about that. What was it like to go back to your undergraduate institution as faculty?
I came back from grad school. I started my business and I was just like working within my business. So my old professor actually had reached out to me and said, we have an open position. Do you want to come back and teach? I've never taught before that. I did like a small like arts program at a local nonprofit art center in DC, but that was the most of it. So I was like, okay, I needed a job. I mean, I was doing okay, but not enough to like really live. So I said, okay, I'll do it. So I went back and I started teaching. And of course, I know my first year, I felt bad for the students because I was so nervous. Like, I know I was just like all over the place, but as time went on, I got a lot more confident in it. And I actually realized, that's when I realized really that's my true calling, is the education portion of fashion. I just remember just being that individual who wanted to learn how to, sew and design, not really having any type of guidance or idea of how to go about it. So I wanted to be that person to help the next person. And I think it was really good as well because, I was 23 when I went back. I was very close in age to most of my, not close in age, but close in age to most of my
pretty
students.
close in age.
Yeah, so they looked up to me. I could relate to them pretty well. I talked about the trending things that were going on, so they connected that way. So that was a pretty good experience. And I taught there for 4 years. And then actually 3 years ago, I left and I came back to Maryland. I'm teaching at the local community college.
That is fantastic. Give us your favorite top 2 classes to teach. I know you've probably taught a bunch, but what are your 2 favorite classes?
My favorite 2 classes, of course, is flat pattern design. I just love, it's a little bit more of an advanced class, but it gives you that that freedom to actually design and make what you want. I definitely love teaching flat pattern design. And my second one is also draping.
I would love to ask some questions. So that's why I wanted to know, so I could ask you questions about those. Because I think of fashion school, the musical, the TV show Fame, like where everyone's singing and dancing and stuff. And but you guys are carrying around sewing machines instead of books. I know that draping is important. It's a fundamental of design. It's one of the earliest ways to think about creating a garment. Why is draping so important? Why is draping an important skill for a new designer to learn?
I feel like once you broke, was like you can choose either to drape or to flat pattern. But I feel like draping is good, especially if you're like more of a visual person, because you can actually see it come to life on the form as you drape out and move and create the garment on the dress form. So that's why I like draping a lot.
I never understood how you go from draping something on a dress form
Mm-hmm.
to making it a garment that people can wear. I'm like, oh, that
Right.
is so pretty on this dress form, but how am I going to get it on my
Yeah.
body?
So you
So,
have
like,
to yeah, you have to just mark it. So once you create the design, you just mark it, like take a pencil or a marking pen and just mark out the darts or whatever seam lines you have or whatever the design style is. Then you transfer it the pattern, then you make the pattern.
this sounds like I need to take a class with someone named Jasmine Chandler. It sounds like I need to find
Yeah.
out the community college you are currently working at. And after the
Mhm.
corduroy is all done and everybody's vaccinated, I can come
Uh-huh.
there and take a class sometime. And I'm trying to figure out how to make that happen. Virginia and
Yeah.
Maryland are actually rather
Yeah.
far apart
Yes.
from where I am. I'm not in Northern
Mhm.
Virginia, I'm in Central,
Okay.
so it's far. But
Mhm.
it sounds fantastic. And so,
Yeah.
thank you so much for elaborating on that because I've
Mhm.
seen people drape, and of course, I know about drapes
Yeah.
of fabric and that kind of thing, but I do not understand the transformation
Yeah.
process of adding the seam lines and the center front, the center back, and all
Yes.
these other
Mhm.
things. Your speaking now is
Mhm.
reminding me of how you might have felt in chemistry class.
Yes.
Yeah, all you got to do is adjust the
Right.
covalent of this and understand. All you got to do is so real quick. You got to go chip chop, and I'm like, what? No,
Yes.
I don't understand. What is she talking about?
Yeah.
And so it's also really exciting to see that you really like to teach flat pattern
Mhm.
design because
Mhm.
now you have said earlier that you are shifting from
Yes.
your prom gown, prom dress,
Mhm.
custom sewing business,
Mhm.
which really does extend your skills as well. Because when you're custom sewing, it's you might start from a block. I'm going to ask you rather
Mhm.
than telling you what I think.
Mhm.
What I imagine custom sewing involves is different sets of measurements because
Right.
everybody's body is different, and so you learn to
Exactly.
sew in a flexible and fluid and highly adaptable way. Like you can't get mad that the skirt you made for person A will not fit
Exactly.
person B. So you're going to make the skirt and you're going to make it
Right.
once. Now you're launching
Mhm.
some patterns. So tell
Mhm.
us about that. Tell us about this pattern line and where that came from.
Yes, I always knew. Maybe the last like 5 or 6 years, I had the idea to start a pattern line. Of course, I never started because once you like, it's sometimes it's like, how? Where do I even start? Because it seems so overwhelming and it's so big. But one thing I would say is once like the pandemic hit, allow me to slow down a little bit because actually, I during the pandemic, like, all my prom like clients pretty much canceled. Well, they didn't cancel. They just never picked up the dresses and like it's just kind of died out. So I was like, I couldn't do any more in person courses. So I had to adapt and rethink how I was going to do my business plan. And I said, I'm going to do some things I always said I want to do and never started. So I started working on launching my pattern line. So that's like how that came about.
That is so smart because you're absolutely right. Because and I know some
Mhm.
friends who, for example, work in the wedding industry.
Mhm.
And what do you do if there are no weddings, but
Mhm.
your job is a wedding photographer or a
Mhm.
wedding dress designer or a cake decorator? You
Right.
don't have those, and so you really do have to adjust. And so
Mhm.
with schools being canceled and social functions being
Mhm.
canceled, that meant that prom was canceled for many
Yes.
people for
Yes.
2020 and that you still want to move forward with your vision. It's
Mhm.
also nice to think too that your vision isn't dependent on what other people are doing. You were trying to get jobs in New York and those weren't coming through. But instead of
Mhm.
just giving up, you kept going. You kept with it. You devised a workaround that was thriving and successful for you. And then
Mhm.
when that started to face some challenges, again, beyond your control,
Mhm.
you found another workaround. You found another
Mhm.
way to make it work and to advance your design philosophy, your
Mhm.
passion for fashion design, and you were able to keep that going. And now, because you are designing and selling patterns, the benefit is larger. Instead of
Yes.
sewing for one client,
Exactly.
you are creating a pattern that lots
Exactly.
and lots and lots of
Yes.
people can use. So I'm really curious about this. As someone who enjoys teaching flat pattern design,
Mhm.
was there anything about designing patterns for a mass market
Mhm.
that surprised you?
Oh yeah, it's still a learning curve for me. I'm still learning lots of things. I've actually taken a class, a pattern workshop that I take. It's actually how I help me learn certain techniques. 'Cause I know I have basic pattern drafting skills to make it to for multiple sizes. There's lots of things you have to consider. I also want to make sure it was size inclusive. So I made sure my size range. I go right now I'm from size 4 to 28. I do want to add on more as I go along, but I want to make sure I was size inclusive. Grading those sizes, that was a learning curve. Figuring that out. So I'm still learning that. So I'm not like a complete expert yet, but I have the basics. I'm working with what I have and going along with it.
And I've seen images of the dress, of the
Mhm.
swing dress, and it is
Mhm.
so super
Thank
cute.
you.
So, what made you decide to launch out with that dress? Can you talk a bit about the
Mhm.
process of
Yes.
designing the dress and then finding your pattern testers and why pattern
Yes.
testers were important?
Yes. So actually, I asked an it's initial of 3 patterns that I'm rolling out. I'm actually working on the last one for this particular collection. And so back in the summer, actually, I was part of the Mood Sewing Network community. I got the fabric from them. I'll make like pieces. So it's a big opportunity to use this platform. So I'm going to draft everything myself. I don't want to attack any other pattern company but my own work. So I'm going to do that. And as I was posting them, I got a lot of like response. Like, oh, is this a pattern? Can you make this a pattern for me? Can you make this? Okay, but I didn't I just whatever. Like I don't have time for that right now. Then
Mm-hmm.
actually I went
Yeah.
back and I said, you know what? I think I will because almost everything that I posted, everyone, oh, which was a pattern. So I said, okay, maybe this is my time to go back and visit and redo make these patterns out. So that's what kind of pushed me to do it all like from my initial drafting and like initial ideas and just convert it into a PDF pattern format. So
That is incredible. Someone asks, "Oh, is this a pattern?" I'd just be
hmm
like, "Nah, cuz I made it up." Uh, I would not be able to say, "Oh, sure. Let me just go ahead and write and draw this down real quick and make
Yeah.
it a pattern in some sizes and grade between the sizes."
hmm
Okay, no problem. So I did see that some folks had the dress and they were
hmm
posting it on
Yes.
Instagram. And so were these the folks that you assembled to test your pattern?
Yes. I
Why
did. Go ahead.
tell me why you think
Uh,
pattern testing is important.
it's so important because one, you need to see how it fits different body types, what may work for you, and what. Because when you sew for yourself, what works for you and what doesn't work for you. But when you have multiple sizes, multiple bodies, you want to see how that lays on different body types, and also it's good they help you with certain call outs. So say you're missing something that you know that because if you're just yourself, it's a lot to manage. But testers really help you with certain issues or fit issues or even directional issues that you have in your directions or instructions. And also you can see how that looks. And also it helps with launch. You can have everyone see the buzz about your new pattern coming out. So that's where it's very helpful.
So you say there's 3 patterns in the collection, and I've
Mhm.
seen the swing dress, I've
Mhm.
seen the jacket that has that really cool
Mhm.
detail at the elbow. And what's
Mhm.
the third pattern? Are you able to share that now, or do
I
you want to
what?
sit on it?
I
You
want to
don't
sit
have
on
to.
it. I want to sit. It actually it's no secret. If you pay any attention to my page, I made this boiler suit, this orange boiler suit back in the summer, and people just like really liked it. That's actually one of the major reasons why I wanted to go into pattern making. People really liked it and they wanted to make it. So I said, okay, I'll make this a pattern. So that's the next pattern, which I hope to roll out this by May. It was supposed to have been out, but it's been a lot of issues with that. But hopefully by either this month or next month, it can finally be out. So.
That is so okay, y'all. We got a little bit of a sneak preview here that this pattern may or may be at, may this episode's going to come out in May, so
Okay.
it
Okay.
may or may not be here, and so I'm gonna say that it is. I'm just gonna
Oh
go ahead
yeah,
and,
I'm
and,
claiming
and
it too.
believe that it's gonna be ready, and you can just go to So Much Jazz on
Mhm.
Instagram and you can find out all the information you need to know about this. And also you get to see the other works. I just think that swing dress is just
Thank
so
you.
absolutely adorable. So after you finish this collection, Jasmine,
Mhm.
what is next for you? What do you imagine the next step for So Much Jazz?
For one, I'm gonna keep releasing different. Now I'm going to work my summer patterns, so I have a couple of styles I'm going to be working on and launching out for the summer. And I also want to bring back my. During the pandemic, I started doing my virtual live classes, live courses teaching flat pattern. So I'm going to be working on that for this summer as well. I'm teaching flat pattern design and level 1 and level 2, and also possibly draping. I'll probably bringing back. So those are the next couple of things I have coming out in the next couple of months.
So these classes that you're mentioning, the
Mm-hmm.
flat pattern design
Mm-hmm.
and draping 1 and 2, are these things that are going to be online so people can
Yes.
sign up for them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
So
where would we find that information?
it would be normally I have it on my page under So Much Jazz. Also, that's another thing too. I launched a second page or second business called Desirée Studio with the intent to help create educational resources for people who want to either make patterns or just like references for like classes and courses, and also tips and tricks. So that page is dedicated to says Desirée Studio on Instagram. So I'll probably also have them listed on there as well.
Excellent. So you heard it here, folks. You can follow So Much Jazz on Instagram and also Desirée Studio to learn more about this fantastic project. Jasmine, this has been so nice.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Thank you
I
for
am
having
so
me.
excited. This has been so much fun just to learn about your rich background in sewing. And I can't remember what I was doing in 5th grade, but I can tell you right now, I was not outlining my entire career path. That's for sure. You certainly win the follow through award for following through on the ambitions that you had as a young child, and moving that forward for today into such a beautiful and thriving business. Congratulations to you on everything.
Thank you so much.
You've been listening to the Stitch Please podcast, the official podcast of Black Women Stitch, the sewing group where Black Lives Matter. We appreciate you supporting us by listening to the podcast. If you'd like to reach out to us with questions, you can contact us at blackwomenstitch@gmail.com. If you'd like to support us financially, you can do that by supporting us on Patreon, Patreon. And you can find Black Women Stitch there in the Patreon directory. And for as little as $2 a month, you can help support the project with things like editing, transcripts, and other things to strengthen the podcast. And finally, if financial support is not something you can do right now, you can really help the podcast by rating it and reviewing it anywhere you listen to podcasts that allows you to review them. So I know that not all podcast directories or services allow for reviews, but for those who do, for those that have a star rating or just ask for a few comments, if you could share those comments and say nice things about us at the Stitch Please podcast, that is incredibly helpful. Thank you so much. Come back next week and we'll help you get your stitch together.